Karen Dupiche, our wonderful, one of our wonderful makeup artists, when the earthquake was happening, she put her coat on and she was like, Jesus.
The art of making idiots look smart. Now The View could ask a mirror who's the...
Greg Gutfeld has made a name for himself as someone who never shies away from speaking his mind. But in a recent appearance, he didn't just share his opinion, he absolutely obliterated Sunny Hostin in what can only be described as a brutal takedown that left The View scrambling for damage control. The result was nothing short of a spectacle, one that reverberated across social media, turning Gutfeld into a viral sensation while leaving The View reeling from the consequences. The story began innocently enough. On an episode of The View, Sunny Hostin was discussing a range of topics, one of which was identity politics. As usual, she dove into her favorite talking points about systemic racism and the long shadows cast by America's past. Hostin, who has consistently pushed for reparations and raised her voice on issues of privilege, went on a rant about climate change, the recent earthquakes, and the eclipse. It seemed like any other day on The View until the conversation took a dramatic turn. Hostin made an astonishing claim. She suggested that the solar eclipse was somehow linked to climate change. But it was her misunderstanding of how eclipses even happen that set the stage for Gutfeld's brutal roast.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa.
Now, we all know that an eclipse is caused by the moon passing between the Earth and the Sun, but Hostin, in her usual fashion, seemed to have missed that memo. The moment was right for Gutfeld to strike, and he did so with precision. In a moment of pure TV gold, Gutfeld leaned in, smirking, and took Hostin to task. He calmly reminded her that it was the moon, not climate change, that caused the eclipse, in what could only be described as a savage correction. But it didn't stop there. Gutfeld turned Hostin's penchant for identity politics against her in a move that shocked both the studio audience and The View's hosts. Gutfeld pointed out the glaring hypocrisy of Hostin's stance on holding others accountable for their past actions. In a stunning twist, he reminded her that her own ancestors were, in fact, slave owners. The audience gasped. Even Joy Behar, who often defends Hostin, was visibly uncomfortable. Whoopi Goldberg, who's rarely lost for words, was utterly speechless. This moment was a public relations nightmare for The View. Hostin had built her platform around talking about privilege and racial justice, but now, she was confronted with the uncomfortable reality of her own ancestry. It was karma, served with a side of schadenfreude. It wasn't long before clips of Gutfeld's remark went viral. Memes flooded social media, with users having a field day. One particularly popular joke read, "Reparations?
Cicadas.
Although I love
for the first time in like
down the hallway.
She ran down the hallway.
The rapture is here.
The rapture's here. And then also I learned that the cicadas are coming.
Let me write that check to myself real quick. And with that, the internet exploded. Gutfeld had not only won the argument, he had completely dominated the news cycle. His late-night show saw an unprecedented surge in viewers, while The View found itself embroiled in controversy. The irony of the situation was too much for the public to ignore. For years, The View had been the self-appointed champion of left-wing politics, regularly dunking on conservative voices and shutting down any dissent. But with this latest gaffe, Gutfeld's roast turned the tables in spectacular fashion. Sunny Hostin's attempt to brush off her newfound heritage as a fact of life didn't sit well with the audience. She had long held others accountable for the mistakes of their ancestors, but now that she was faced with her own uncomfortable history, her reaction was one of dismissiveness. But Gutfeld wasn't done. He pounced on the moment, pointing out how Hostin's obsession with race had blinded her to her own identity. She had spent so much time defining herself through the lens of systemic oppression that she never bothered to ask where she truly came from. Now that she knew, would she change her tune? The questions kept piling up.
This new one was Sunny, pretty dumb, and then Joey Behar in her own echo chamber. I'm going to say the dumbest.
Would Hostin continue to push the same talking points despite her embarrassing revelation? Would she acknowledge the hypocrisy, or would she double down? The tension on The View set was palpable as Whoopi Goldberg scrambled to change the subject, but the damage was already done. Hostin's attempt at regaining control fell flat. Her credibility, already tenuous, took a massive hit. This moment, as damning as it was for Hostin, played into a larger pattern of scandals and controversies surrounding The View. From Whoopi Goldberg's tone-deaf remarks about the Holocaust to the repeated defamation lawsuits filed against the show for its attacks on figures like Elon Musk, The View had been on a downward spiral for quite some time. But Greg Gutfeld's devastating roast was a blow that left the show on the ropes. The damage didn't just stop at Hostin's ego. It had financial ramifications for The View and its parent network, ABC. Advertisers began to distance themselves from the show, wary of associating their brands with a program embroiled in so much controversy. Some were even pulling their sponsorships altogether, forcing ABC executives into emergency meetings. Speculation ran wild about what would happen next. Would ABC finally pull the plug on The View? Could the show survive the backlash, or would it be quietly cancelled and replaced by something fresher and less controversial? Insiders reported that the executives were livid over the legal fees and lost sponsorships. The viewership numbers were already declining, and this latest scandal wasn't helping matters.
And the eclipse, they've known about the eclipse coming because the eclipse...
Sunny Hostin's personal humiliation was only the tip of the iceberg. The larger question now was whether The View could recover from this unprecedented blow. Would they fire Hostin and other controversial figures like Goldberg and Behar? Or would they continue with the status quo, hoping that the controversy would blow over? At the end of the day, The View was facing a crossroads. The choices made in the coming weeks could determine the show's future. Greg Gutfeld had delivered a masterclass in exposing hypocrisy, and now the ball was in The View's court. The ratings were already declining, and now the show was facing the consequences of its past actions. So, what does this mean for The View? Will they survive this latest scandal? Or will Greg Gutfeld's devastating roast mark the beginning of the end for the once dominant talk show? As the media landscape shifts, The View's grip on the public consciousness seems to be slipping. The damage may be too great to repair, and ABC may soon have to decide whether to continue supporting the show or let it fade into obscurity. One thing is clear, The View is no longer untouchable. What do you think of Greg Gutfeld's brutal roast of Sunny Hostin? Will The View recover from this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.